Hello, everyone. My name is Ilaria Carrozza, and I'm a senior researcher at the Peace Research Institute, Oslo, PREO. My article is titled Neither Convergence Nor Resistance, a Hybridization Framework for Norm Evolution in the Digital Age. The question at the heart of the paper is, when China builds digital infrastructure in other countries, like submarine cables, internet and cloud platforms, smart city systems, do the political norms embedded in that technology travel with such infrastructure? Most people assume the answer is a straight yes. However, my research suggests it's a lot more complicated than that. And in this article, I develop a new framework for understanding how digital governance norms actually spread and transform as they move across borders. International relations scholarship has come a long way from treating norm diffusion as a simple story of adoption or resistance. Work on issues like localization, contestation, translation, collision, all of this has shown that norm uptake is political and deeply shaped by domestic contexts. But here's why I think is still missing. Most of these frameworks still evaluate what happens to a single norm or a cluster of norms as it travels. So they ask, for instance, how far has a norm been localized and how much is it contested? What they don't fully account for is what happens when multiple competing normative sources are present simultaneously, and actors aren't just adapting one external model, but they're drawing selectively from several to build something qualitatively new. In order to address this gap, I develop a framework that I call norm hybridization. When states face competing governance models from, say, China, the EU, the US, ASEAN, they don't just pick one, they recombine several. They take what works, filter it through domestic institutions and values, and produce governance arrangements that are genuinely new. To make this analytically useful, I develop a typology in three parts: dominant foreign influence, where external norms come in largely intact; balanced hybridization, where foreign local elements are meaningfully woven together; and dominant local influence, where domestic actors take the lead. These outcomes aren't arbitrary, they're shaped by specific scope conditions. For example, how economically dependent a country is on a technology exporter, how strong its institutions are, how it positions itself geopolitically, and what sector we're looking at. I test this framework in Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines, three countries that are deeply involved in China's digital Silk Road, the digital component of the Belt and Road Initiative, and they're also very dependent on China for cheaper technology. I use over 100 expert interviews and extensive document analysis of more than 200 texts, and I look at two domains side by side: cybersecurity and ethical AI governance. And what I find is that in these two domains, we have like almost opposite stories under similar external pressures. In cybersecurity, all three countries converge around Western standards, such as GDPR-inspired data protection laws. There is very little local innovation, and Chinese normative influence is essentially absent. Referring back to my typology is what I would call dominant foreign influence, which is driven by technical path dependency and compliance logics. But if you look at ethical AI governance in Indonesia, I see that actors filter global AI ethics through Pancasila, which is the country's national philosophy. In Malaysia, they wave ethical standards into ESG and legal modernization agendas. And the Philippines, they layer international principle through ASEAN consensus building. All of these three cases are examples of balanced hybridization, and in none of them is China setting the normative agenda, despite being a major infrastructure provider. So, what are the two key takeaways? First, infrastructure does not equal influence. China can lay the cables and it can build the platforms, but that doesn't automatically translate into normative influence, despite Beijing's own objective to do just that, something that I explore elsewhere in my work. And second, we need to move beyond evaluating how far individual norms travel from their point of origin, because what's happening in Southeast Asia is strategic recombination, actors assembling governance arrangements from multiple competing sources, and a hybridization framework gives us the tools to explain it, to predict it, and to compare it across cases. And the framework is really meant to travel both beyond Southeast Asia, but also beyond digital governance, and really to any context where competing normative orders collide. The full article has so much more in it, and I hope you're going to read it. Thank you for watching.